I want to talk to you today about sustainability. Tessenderlo Kerley is committed to being a sustainable company. And what I want to talk to you today about is some of the products that Tessenderlo Kerley produces, the liquid fertilizers that are sustainable. Now, I've been in the liquid fertilizer business for 44 years. Over 31 of those with Tessenderlo Kerley. In the liquid fertilizer business, we always talk to growers about reducing your inputs per acre, getting more efficiency out of the nutrients that you're putting down. When you reduce those inputs, you reduce the cost, but we're maintaining the yield and quality or growing them to what the grower needs. 35 years later, those features and benefits that we talked about are now known or lumped into a term called sustainability. One of the things when we talk about sustainability, since Tessenderlo Kerley Crop Vitality is a sulfur-based company, we get our sulfur from the refineries that take sour crude, pull the sulfur off, that's a pollutant to the air, and now we have a tank full of pollutant that they need to do something with. Tessenderlo Kerley comes in, takes that sulfur, and turns it into usable fertilizers and efficient fertilizers for agricultural use. That's a sustainable program, reducing sulfur in the emissions, in cleaning up the air, and then using that sulfur in fertilizer. Another thing about sulfur that you may not know is that sulfur is necessary to be applied to that agricultural field if you want the benefit of utilizing the nitrogen more efficiently. It is a nitrogen use efficiency factor. You need a certain amount of sulfur in order to utilize the nitrogen you put down. That's sustainable. I remember years ago I was speaking at a grower meeting, dryland wheat. They were using 135 pounds of nitrogen to the acre, but only 10 pounds of sulfur. And the whole reason to talk to these growers was to get them to increase the amount of sulfur that they were putting down so that we could utilize that nitrogen more efficiently. So after I got done with the talk, we decided that we probably needed to be putting on about 20 pounds of sulfur to the acre with our 135 pounds of N. The first question I got from a grower was, well, Mike, if we increase the sulfur, how much more nitrogen should I put down? And I told him, you're missing the point. We don't want to put more nitrogen down. We want to utilize that nitrogen you're putting down more efficiently. And we can do that, in that case, by increasing the amount of sulfur that's being put down. That is sustainable. Anytime you can put a nutrient down that helps the utilization of another nutrient, that's a sustainable program. And plus, if we can use more of that nitrogen in the plant, we have less nitrogen being lost into the environment. Now we look at the liquid fertilizers as far as efficiency goes of application. They can be put down in a multitude of ways. We can put it down in a planter band, small amounts close to that seed piece. We can put it in as a pop-up where you're putting some fertilizer right on the seed. Efficient use of that fertilizer being taken up as a plant's germinating and growing. Side dresses, putting it down through the center pivot or through the drip irrigation. Putting on the nutrient you need at the right rate at the right time. Those are sustainable programs, and liquid fertilizers allow you to put fertilizer on in a multitude of different ways. Small amounts, keeping your inputs low, but not sacrificing yield and quality. Those are sustainable features. Now we look at the chemistry of the products. Let's look first of all at thiosulfates. That would include CATS, KTS, magthio, and thiosol. You're putting down those products. Part of what you're getting is the sulfur. It's not just sulfur though. Thiosulfates do some different things in the soil. Extra benefits, sustainable benefits that you get. For instance, as you're oxidizing a thiosulfate in the soil, it can make phosphate more available. That's sustainable. It makes zinc, iron, and manganese as micronutrients more available. You're not even putting them down, but yet they become available to the crop because of that oxidation of the thiosulfate in the soil. That's a sustainable action. We solubilize calcium, making calcium available to that growing crop. Plus, if you solubilize calcium, it will increase water infiltration, so you get better water going through that soil. If you have potassium that dominates the soil particle, the calcium can actually release that potassium, putting more potassium in solution, making it more soluble, getting more uptake with that plant that you're growing. Those are all sustainable features, all because of the chemistry of the product. When we look at our product called K-Row 23, it is especially built to be put on the seed at planting time. It's a seed-safe application. You don't put a lot on, but that little bit that you put is placed on the seed so that when it germinates, that plant can take it up readily and you get a quicker response, increasing your potential for yield and quality. Now, not only do you have a multitude of ways that liquids can be put on, and again, we kind of covered some of the value of the thiosulfates, but there's even more to it than that. One of our trials that we did on corn several years ago, we looked at a liquid potassium, it was potassium chloride, and that was the grower's standard practice, using it with 1034O and some micronutrients and some sulfur. And so we went in and got him to use KTS instead of KCl. And we looked at it side by side. They're both liquid potassiums, and he didn't feel that it was going to make any difference. But I told him, I said, well, we'll put this KTS down. We want to use a third of the rate of potassium to the acre than what you put on with the KCl. I said, because it's extremely efficient in that thiosulfate form. So when we made those applications, and at harvest time, where we used KTS over 8 replications, increased the yield of corn by 25 bushels to the acre over potassium as KCl. Here we have something where we're putting on less input, K as KTS, than we did KCl, but we got a higher yield. That's a sustainable program, all because of the chemistry of the product versus another chemistry. And you can also use liquid fertilizers like the thiosulfates, some of them as foliars. We've used magthio, for instance, on carrots. 2 gallons applied foliar over the season gave us about 15 tons more carrots to the acre than 20 pounds of a different magnesium source that was soil applied. That's sustainable. So it's sustainable, and that's a multitude of ways these things can be put down, and the chemistry works better. We want to reduce inputs, but increase the yield. Those are sustainable programs. Another option when we're looking at sustainability is our one product that is not sulfur-based, and that is Ensure. Ensure is urea nitrogen, but it's in a slow-release form. What does that do? When it's in the soil, it actually, reduce nitrogen losses due to leaching, which is sustainable. If you keep more nitrogen in the root zone, you lose less, more of it available to the plant for yield and quality. That's a sustainable program. We've done some work where we've used Ensure with UAN 32 solutions, so some quick release nitrogen to get that crop going, putting it on through the center pivot, for instance, on potatoes, and using some of that nitrogen as Ensure. On potatoes, when we've used the same amount of nitrogen as 32 versus a blend of, say, a 75-25 blend of 32 and Ensure, we increased yields by over 4 tons to the acre. How do you do that? It's because we lost less nitrogen to the soil environment. When you lose less nitrogen to the environment, you have more nitrogen available for that plant to use for yield and quality. We've done it not only on potatoes, we've done it on corn, we've done it on onions and a multitude of other crops. One of the onion trials we did, looking at 32 by itself at 180 pounds of nitrogen to the acre through the drip for the season, yielded 50 tons to the acre. The 75-25 blend of 32 and Ensure Not putting on any more than that 180 pounds of N gave us an additional 18 tons to the acre. Why? We're putting on the same amount of nitrogen. The idea is that we're losing less to the environment with the Ensure. That's a sustainable program. Reducing inputs or keeping the inputs the same, but increasing yield and quality. So sustainability is important. It's important for the environment. It's important for the grower, where he can use less and get a better response out of what he's putting down. So I hope this has helped you to understand some of the sustainable aspects of crop vitality products. And thank you for taking the time to listen.